I haven't given up when it comes to ZBCN, and why would I? Even though nothing I say is financial advice, I'm going to discuss my thoughts on 10 cents later on the video. But then at the same time, I get it, altcoins are not necessarily doing the best as of right now, but ZBCN is actually holding up pretty strong. And just take a look at, for instance, right? ZBCN back in July. The pullback was a lot, more drastic than right now. Sure, ZBCN's had a pretty big pullback, relatively speaking, but it's not as big as like what we once saw back in July. Not to mention, when I take a look at ZBCN and what it's achieved so far, like take a look at, let's say, ZBCN back in April. It wasn't really doing that good, right? And then it had that pretty good rally. Back then, a lot of my friends were like, ZBCN's not going to do anything. But then suddenly, we take a look at what it did in May. That was very impressive, right? So then my point of view is this. What I'm seeing right now when it comes to ZBCN, who knows if it could be different a month later, 2 months, 3 months later. Because again, back in April, not many people thought that, ZBCN was going to do anything. You know what I mean? And now, I get it, there's a pullback. But then ZBCN is kind of stabilizing a lot better than it did before. Now I feel like the amount of holders are more established, and also on top of that, the popularity as well is just more established, right? People take a look at the Solana aspect when it comes to Zebec. They take a look at its focus on payrolls, real world assets, or should I say RWAs on AI-based PayFi. The Zebec cards is doing pretty okay. So then it's more established right now. Could things go lower? I mean, who knows? Things could, in theory, go lower. But then at the same time, sometimes there's going to be a point where some people just don't really want to sell anymore. You know what I mean? So then this is the way to take a look at it. However, also my point of view is that sometimes for a seller, there's a buyer, right? So sure, maybe there's a sell-off when it comes to ZBCN relatively speaking, but I still want a dollar cost average. This is the way to take a look at it. And also, my point of view is this. When I take a look at something like the Kraken listing, which happened not too long ago, it went live, right? A lot of people are telling me, oh, take a look at it. Why isn't the price doing much? Again, like what I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I said how a listing, when it comes to something like that, especially in this case when it comes to ZBCN, it may not necessarily generate just that instant, moment where it just does this or does that, because it's not at a time where altcoins are doing the best. You know what I mean? I said how it's kind of laying down the foundation, kind of laying down the groundwork for a moment in time in which the market does do better. So that right there, when people say, oh, the Kraken listing, who cares about that? It's not good and all this. Well, I think it may not necessarily do much right now, right? But then who knows what it's going to do during an altcoin season if we do ever even see one. This is why when I take a look at Zebec, I just don't feel like the Kraken listing was a loss. I don't feel like that. Some people like to say, oh, they probably took a lot of effort to do that and then it's not really doing much. Well, again, a bunch of things other than ZBCN on Kraken are not doing good right now. And ZBCN's actually holding up pretty okay in the grand scheme of things. So, yes, relatively speaking, the pullback when it comes to ZBCN, of course, who likes to see things go down, right? But then at the same time, it's just part of the market. I knew that getting into it. I just knew it was going to be this roller coaster, and only time will tell. And here's the thing. I don't think I've seen an altcoin season during this cycle. So I don't think the ride is over. This is the way to take a look at it. I'm still staying patient. I'm still dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting, because when I take a look at Zebec having an aspect of Solana, we saw when Solana had pretty good attention, I think some of that a little bit kind of trickled down maybe to something like Zebec. Especially, let's say back in May. You know what I mean? Now, it's not like Solana is the most popularly run blockchain of all time, but it had pretty decent attention at that time. You know what I mean? And here's the thing as well. If I believe in the future of Solana, which I do, and I feel like during an altcoin season maybe that could gain some attention, why would I completely ignore Zebec like that, especially if it's actually doing a lot better than before? It just makes no sense to me. Keep in mind, when I was believing in kind of ZBCN initially, the market cap was below 100 million, right? Now it's around 350 million. Big difference there. And if I was able to believe in ZBCN back then, I just don't know why I would suddenly give up on it like that. It just makes no sense to me, but this is just my perspective. Now, also on top of that as well, when it comes to ZBCN at the price of 10 cents, market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 9 billion. It's around a 24x from here. Again, still around a $9 billion market cap. It just doesn't seem that ridiculous to me. First of all, ZBCN currently is around that top 130 range when it comes to projects in terms of market cap and size, right? So it's not bad. It has a good amount of holders. It has that reputation, which is, I think, pretty decent as of right now, and it has pretty good notoriety. Like, going to around a $9 billion market cap from this point, it just doesn't seem that ridiculous. It's just my perspective. If ZBCN currently had a market cap of like 50,000 or even just like 10 million or something like that, that's a little bit, difficult for me to even believe, right? But then the market cap is pretty okay, and a $9 billion market cap is around a 24x from here. Keep in mind, 10 cents not too long ago was around an 11x from here. Now, granted, that was like, back in around that June time, right? Around June, I should say. So it's like around 4 months ago, but then still, at one point, it was kind of a little bit close. Now, around an 11x is not that close, but it's kind of a little bit, So then my point of view is this. ZBCN did that without altcoin season, I think, and I don't think I've seen altcoin season. So if there was one, and let's say ZBCN did better than before, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but this is just my perspective. I'm not telling to do anything when it comes to Zebec. And my point of view as well is that when it comes to something like Circle, which supposedly holds a big amount of ZBCN, and Circle, by the way, is the creator of USDC, the stablecoin, and they also happen to be a backer when it comes to Zebec. I haven't seen about anything about, let's say, Circle giving up on ZBCN. You know what I mean? Solana Ventures, keep in mind, there's many projects on Solana, right? There's many projects out there that kind of have an aspect of Solana, but why is Solana Ventures a backer when it comes to Zebec? They clearly don't need this, right? In my opinion. But then they believed in it anyways. Is that saying something? I think maybe. I'm not going to believe in every single thing they believe in, but then at the same time, I find that pretty interesting that something that massive, like not only Solana Ventures, even Circle, they clearly don't need Zebec, I think. Why would they need that? They're already massive in and of itself. So if they believe in a project, I think maybe, in my perspective, it shows that they see the fundamentals are there. They see kind of maybe the future of it. I think maybe they see kind of the uniqueness of the project, right? The unique nature of it. And I do see some of that aspects too when it comes to Zebec. I kind of view Zebec as basically being somewhat a miniature version of Ripple and Stellar, but then just having kind of that Solana aspect. And not to mention, Zebec is working towards ISO 20022 compliance. So it's just a little bit tough for me to give up on it, right? I just find it more difficult for me to give up on it as opposed to, believe in it. You know what I mean? So this is why I still believe in it. Clearly, this is just what I'm thinking about this. I'm not telling you anything, but I just don't want to give up. Because eventually, again, even though ZBCN could maybe go lower, there's going to be a point in time where things can only go so low, right? This is why I'm still just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. But yeah, I'm just staying patient, and that's pretty much about it. And I want to say thank you for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all have a nice day. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.